Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for this episode is John Maas. He's the CEO and founder of Mountain Primal Meat Company, based right here in Basalt, Colorado, offering an incredible service from ranch straight to consumers. But above and beyond all that, John is an incredible person. I thoroughly enjoyed sitting down and getting to know him today and learning about his values. I wish that there were more Americans like John Maas, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome, Colorado's own Mountain Primal, John.
Thank you, man.
Maas?
Maas.
Okay, cool. I wanted to make sure I was saying that right. So
it's Dutch. People say it wrong all the time, but yeah, it's Maas.
Well, I appreciate you coming down. We were talking before the podcast started. You're super busy right now. You guys are dropping calves like crazy and dealing with predators, and
there's a few out there. They come out of the woodwork when the calves show up. So
well, it's really nice to have you here, man.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. You've done a couple of these podcasts already, and where could people go back and listen to some of those if they wanted to catch up, if we don't cover everything today?
Yeah, you know, we're going to add something to the website where we'll have a little page. Now that there's more than a handful, we'll get something up on the website one of these days. But just check out the website, mountainprimal.com. We'll get everything up on there.
Perfect. Yeah. And for our listeners that don't know who you are, and I highly suggest go check out Mountain Primal's Instagram page. It's just at Mountain Primal, right?
Correct, yeah.
You guys have an awesome Instagram page that I've been following for a while. And can you tell us what you guys do at Mountain Primal?
Yeah, so we raise cattle, essentially. It's almost as if we have two businesses. We've got the ranching side, which is, for us, is raising beef. You know, we raise American Highland Cattle from, we calve, we do all the breeding, we do sort the animals, castrate steers, bulls, breed, we do it all. We do all the trucking. We do everything that we can do up until we get them to that USDA slaughter plant where the meat gets processed. And that's kind of where business number two, it's all the same business, but it's almost like running two separate businesses. So with all the agricultural stuff that we do and rotational grazing and crop management.
And you guys are direct to consumer too, right? So correct. You guys handle it until it shows up at your doorstep pretty much.
100% pretty much. Yeah. So that's kind of where the flip side of the coin of the business takes over, and we're looking at supply chains and cardboard and coolers and, coolant for inside our packaging and design for all the packaging and USDA approved labels and different cuts of meat and website management. It just goes on and on from there.
I think you guys do a really good job on the social side, so it's not your average ranch,
No, we put a lot into that, and it's not that hard because we're always cooking meat and doing different things. So we just for many years we didn't capture a lot of what was going on there, and that's when I hired Darren, our head of brand, and we brought him out. And the main idea for that was, let's build the social side of it, but more than anything, I wanted to make sure we were capturing some of these moments that to me seem not repeatable, and I wanted to be able to have photos and videos and just different content to be able to show my kids down the road or grandkids or for.
What a great way to archive it, unless you get kicked off these days, which is pretty easy to do. But I just had a friend kicked off this week. Actually, he started an ammunition company, and he wasn't posting anything crazy. It was just literally like ammunition.
Yeah,
and they pulled his personal page, not the actual ammunition website. Shout out to Canoe Club, by the way. It's about the only spot you can get ammo right now. But
really?
Go check them out. And it's veteran owned. Good guys just starting off with that.
We've got quite a stockpile at the ranch, as you can imagine, but it's always good to find new supply.
Yeah, these guys are cool. They're all online. Same thing that you guys are doing, just on the ammunition side.
Yeah, so you're right. You never know when you're going to get the plug pulled on you or shadow banning or there's all kinds of weird stuff happening in the world right now, obviously.
Yeah.
But the biggest goal was to just, because I get super focused on whatever's right in front of me. I'm a very present person. I know that about myself. I've been that way a long time. So when I get in these moments where things are happening, I don't really think to pull out a camera or to take videos. I'm just in there living.
I'm the guy that likes to soak it in. Like when I'm out hunting and stuff, number one, I don't take pictures of my kills just because it's a personal thing for me. It's just, I've just never wanted to be that guy with his boot on the deer's head or whatever, right? You know, it's just never been my cup of tea. And I was just kind of raised that way too, you know, just to be as ethical as you can. And I don't knock anybody that's trophy hunters either by any means, you know, but it just, for me, it's just taking in the moment. And, you know, a lot of times when I'm hunting, I don't even take my cell phone with me. It just stays in the tent or camper or truck or wherever, you know. So
yeah, it's good to have those moments.
That's my excuse to disconnect, right? Just, fuck it, I don't need this thing right now.
And this is cool because when you do your podcast, you can disconnect as well and just like really focus on whoever you got in the studio.
And that's really why we do it in person. Like I said, I appreciate you coming down for that, man, because
I prefer it this way.
Yeah, sure. A lot of people won't show up. They want to do it virtually, you know, and we've turned down some huge guests because of that. Just like, no, I'm trying to stick to my guns. And, you know, we started it after COVID as well. So there's definitely been some hurdles there, you know. People didn't want to come in, or they want to do it in a mask or whatever. And it's just like, I'm trying to set somewhat of a standard here, you know, like, but this is great, being able to look eye to eye and just, you know, cell phones are off. We're having a conversation. I feel like you're locked in with these headphones, you know. And,
for sure. No, we're sharing time together.
Yeah. And
so
which
cool.
I think is pretty unusual these days. You know, a lot of it is through a social image or something like that, you know. And
you and I talked about that the first time we spoke on the phone.
Yeah, because I called you.
You called me and I answered. Like a lot of people don't, you know.
I wasn't ready for it. I thought it was going to go to a voicemail, you know.
I try to always answer my phone, even if it's a stupid robocalls. I'm like, whatever. But
I'm big on it too.
You can get a lot more accomplished in a phone call, and certainly much more accomplished in a face-to-face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. The guy that connected us too, Baker from Black Rifle. Shout out to those guys. You know,
Baker,
awesome company. But those guys, you know, the first time I talked to him, I think he might have messaged me on IG just like, hey, how's it going, buddy? And then the next thing I know, I'm getting a phone call from him. I don't even know how he got my number. I don't even know who set him up with me or whatever.
Baker's a ninja.
Yeah.
He's a ninja.
But he just called me up and he's like, hey, how's it going? You want to bring this guy on your podcast? I was like, yeah, it seems cool. So I was like, God, just turn around and call John. You know? So
God bless Baker. I talk to Baker every day. So
solid guy.
He's great.
Yeah, he's good people, man.
He's done a lot for us, and we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, no, he's doing a lot for us too, so appreciate it. You know, I'm sure that our listeners, because of the normal guests that we have on, are either ex-military or professional rock climbers, mountain bikers, whatever. They're probably wondering why I'm having a cattle rancher on, a Colorado cattle rancher. And I'm just going to answer that question right now. You know, I believe here at the Mountainside Podcast, I don't know how much you've gone back and listened to some of our episodes. The whole reason we started this thing was to promote stewardship of the land, conservation, treating public spaces right, treating private spaces right, you know, trying to educate the public on what role hunting plays in that, you know, buying fishing licenses, following the rules, not fishing to rivers that are too hot. I mean, we could just keep going on and on. I could do a whole podcast just listing all the shit that you're not supposed to do. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert in it, right? And we bring some experts in, but I feel like agriculture, ranching, farming, whatever it is, your land is your most important commodity. And, you know, who's going to take care of it better than somebody that gets wealth out of that, right?
Yeah.
So that's one reason I want to have you on. Secondly is, for people that don't know John, your story is crazy, right? Because you went from, we're going to dive into that here in a minute, but it's not the typical rancher story, right? Not like a fifth, sixth generation rancher.
I get asked that all the time.
Yeah. And, you know, we have a lot to talk about today, so I'm super pumped, man. And, but, you know, let's dive into your background. I think that's super interesting. You know, you started in real estate, just the little bit I know from talking with Baker.
Yeah.
And, you started in real estate. You were doing really well in real estate. you moved to Colorado because of that, into the Roaring Fork Valley. And then all of a sudden it took a right turn, and I don't know anything after that. Now you own Mountain Primal, right?
Yeah, it's totally by accident. I guess it's just the way my life was set up from a very young age. You know, I was kind of poised with a certain skill set, I guess, that is unique, that made this opportunity doable for me. You know, for me and my family, I guess it just didn't seem like that big of a deal. And then, you know, fast forward a few years and you start talking to strangers about what you do, and they're like, so you grew up on a ranch? And I'm like, no, that's not how it went. And people are almost like disappointed or shocked when I tell them that, you know.
Really?
Because it's almost like, so like how could you?
I'm disappointed on the other spectrum, because my family actually homesteaded, like, on your drive in, all those big open spaces that you saw, those old barns in it.
Beautiful.
That was my family's property at one time, and they were cattle ranches.
Yeah.
And that was their livelihood. And generations, as it got passed down, somewhere in that generation line, some brothers got together and decided that they wanted to be excavators over cattle ranchers.
Yeah.
And they invested everything in Vail Ski Resort.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. The Great Depression came along, all kinds of different shit, right?
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a unique background as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've always been an outdoorsman. Grew up that way, you know, grew up in Minnesota, which is an outdoorsman's paradise.
Yeah.
You know, hunting and fishing and four-wheeling and shooting trap and hiking around in the woods and burning, you know, heating the home with wood fires, and just a pretty intense winter up there too. Is
way different than here.
It kind of carves out a different character, I think, than a lot of people may have. You know, just the winter hardships, and especially in the time that I grew up. You know, I grew up in the 80s, and, you know, prior to cell phones, and, you know, we didn't really do much video gaming or any of that, but we played sports and we hunted and fished all the time. I mean, that was our life. That was our vacations. That was our time off of school, was either going on a fishing trip or a hunting trip. Like my family was so crazed for that my dad actually falsified my birth certificate when I was 11, so I could get my hunter safety card a year early. Oh, yeah. and go on my first big game hunting trip out in Montana when we had a break at school. So my dad was raised by a World War II Marine veteran. Really? Yeah, so super crazy.
Now, do you have a military background? Or?
No, okay. No. In my family, all my grandpas were in World War II. My dad's dad was, like I said, he was in the Marine Corps in World War II. He was in the Battle of Iwo Jima. He was in the fifth. Yeah, he was in the 5th Amphibious Corps and did, you know, Saipan and Tarawa and like a lot of the really bad ones.
I urge people to go back and read about that, because like the kamikaze type style and some of the stuff that happened. Like, my
grandpa almost got killed by a kamikaze attack because he was aboard the USS Saratoga during the Battle of Iwo Jima, and they took 6 kamikaze hits they lost like 123 guys that night. So it was bad. So anyways, that was who he was. And then my mom's dad was a nose gunner in a B-24 bomber. And he did
both
like
sides of the family then, huh?
25 flight missions, and he ultimately ended up getting shot out of the sky and parachuted, and captain and crew, a bunch of guys killed, and then he ended up as a POW until the end of the war.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long was he in?
He was a POW for about 10 months. So
that's a whole other level, man.
I'm a fairly big guy, but he was a couple inches shorter than me and maybe weighed like 160. You know, everybody's kind of smaller back then. They not as much nutrition and things like that,
Sure.
and obviously not weight training and stuff like that. But he was probably 160, 165, 170, and he got out of the prison camp. He weighed 95 pounds. So,
oh my God.
Yeah,
he's lucky he lived.
He almost
man.
died. Yep.
Yeah.
So he was one of the happiest guys I ever knew, and obviously growing up with all those stories of the war and then, you know, all that kind of stuff. My stepdad was a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard, and then we've got a son in the Navy. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're definitely there. You know, it's part of our DNA for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And then all kinds of friends and people that we know. Obviously, there's all kinds of vets coming back from the war and people that have phased in and phased out, and we rub elbows with a lot of those people. So
yeah, no, it's a great community too, man. Just good people in general, like humble, have a different outlook on life. I never served, but I enjoy being around those sort of people because you know what you're getting. A lot of the time there's not a whole lot of bullshit. Yeah, I guess there's bullshit in anything, but for the majority, most of those people are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just being around like-minded people, when it comes to like principles or politics or whatever, we kind of always see eye to eye on a lot of that stuff.
And the patriotism that they have, right? Like that's big to me.
That's huge to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Very, very big.
So let's dive back into, you move out here, you're building homes, you're selling homes.
Yeah. Did that for a long time. Still doing it, really. Okay. Kind of on a different level because the vast majority of my time is taken up now running the ranch and running the business and coming to hang out with you and meeting with different people and trying to promote what it is that we do. But yeah, we still are heavily involved as a family in the real estate industry, different investment properties and construction and stuff like that. And obviously it made it easy for us when we bought our first ranch property. It needed kind of an overhaul. It had been,
And you were originally going to subdivide that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So being a builder, real estate developer, my wife and I were looking for a piece of land that we could build our house on and kind of be like, all right, that's where we're going to be for a good long while. And we found our first piece of ranch property and we're like, all right, we'll build one there and we'll try to build like 10 other houses there, sell a bunch of it, make some dough. And while we were kind of drawing up the plans for the house, because we do a lot of design work ourselves too, and then kind of get the architect involved and get all technical with the structurals and things like that. But while we were working on the kind of the behind the scenes stuff for building our house, the ranch has a life, and we're going through the seasons. And
so it was an active ranch when you bought it then, yeah?
Yeah, but different. It was used for housing outfitting horses. And then they would graze some cattle there just to make a little extra cash. And there was, I think there was 4 families living on the property. There was like an RV in the shop, and there was 2 families living in the one house, and then another RV like parked out back, and it's kind of a mess. So when we got there,
your typical ranch.
Yeah. It was pretty interesting. So there's a lot of cleanup that needed to be done. A lot of older ranch properties, things just kind of build up on the periphery and equipment and garbage and debris and stuff like that. So we took really about the first 2 years that we had that property, we kind of rebuilt the infrastructure. We had to redo the water lines and the electric and figure out all the irrigation and like, how do you irrigate? Buy a tractor, learn how to cut hay, bale hay, do all. And my style.
So you were just going into it blind, right?
Yeah.
But why didn't you subdivide it? Because I mean, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're getting to that point, I guess.
Yeah, as we got into that work, to me, it was like massively therapeutic to be outside. I mean, I've always, being a builder when I was younger, and I was actually like physically building the houses, like, doing all the framing and do everything. We did a lot of that stuff. I did it for a long time and then hired a bunch of people and built the company to a point where we had a bunch of people on the payroll doing that stuff. And then I just ran that business. But knowing how to do all that, it didn't seem that daunting to take on this project of like fixing this place up, building the house. And then, the experience in construction with heavy equipment and skid steers and backhoes, like getting in a tractor was not a big deal. Fixing the hay baler when it broke was not a big deal. Dealing with all that stuff, hooking up trailers, and it just was a piece of my life to begin with. So
sure.
And then, so to honor the property, I don't know, some people maybe would have taken that on and just neglected the property and been like, well, who cares? We're going to divide it anyways and do our own thing. So we're not going to irrigate this year, but that's kind of my style, is to not neglect things, and to honor the property that we have and do the right thing for the land. Because that's a character, it's a character in our life at this point. So you got to do what's right for the people in your life, the characters, the have respect for your property and go to the far corners
Respect
of it.
for nature in general,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yep.
what's around you, yeah.
So we took on all that work, and while we did that, we really fell in love with the process and got things fixed up, and that made us have a lot more pride in the property, and then we brought in 100 head of cattle for the first winter because I had cut and baled 4,000 bales of hay by myself. Well, the family helped a little bit, but
I've done that before. Yeah.
Yeah, hay prices were down, so I wasn't interested in selling it. So I put it in the hay barn and we stored it. Now I'm got hay barn full of hay. I'm like, what the hell am I gonna? Well, let's
anybody
feed
that
it
hasn't
out.
done that work, I highly suggest just go do it for one summer. There's all these ranches around here that need help. Yeah. My biggest thing is I was allergic to hay and still did it for like $5 an hour.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because your body takes on that. You build immunity to all that stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I had some issues with hay fever at the beginning, but now it's like no big deal.
I think I did it for 2 or 3 years or something. Yeah, and I think it got easier from what I recall. You know?
We always put the sneezy kids in the pickup truck to drive pull the hay trailer and stuff like that. But so then instead of selling the hay, I brought in some cattle to graze down the field. I knew a guy from the in fact he used to graze cattle there before he bought the property, so I got his number and called him up. I was like, Rick, bring me 100 head of cattle. He's like, you want them today? I'm like, no, let's do it like next week. Yeah. But so then he just kept bringing trailer load of cattle, and then as a family, we took on the task of feeding and watering and caring for those animals over the winter, and really fell in love with that process.
And that is a grueling process. I mean, just growing up in 4-H and being around a lot of that at a young age, this community used to be a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of ranches that have been bought and subdivided or turned into open space, and there's no more cows on them, man. But that was a good way for a young buck like me that grew up poor. If I wanted something like a new pair of jeans or a new pair of shoes or whatever, it was go work on one of these ranches, branding, bucking hay, doing whatever. And
there's always work to do, fixing fences, picking rocks, organizing the shop, cleaning machinery. There's a zillion things to do.
But that type of work just doesn't quit, right? Like Never. If you go to work as a full-time ranch manager and you live on the ranch, right? Yeah. You don't show up at 8:00 in the morning, get out of your truck, finish your coffee, and then go to work and punch out at 5 and go home. I mean, you were just talking about you guys were dropping calves all night, right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't have any last night, but we still, in calving season, we do night checks. So one of us will be up and looking through the herd every 3 hours. And a couple nights ago, we had a bunch of calves and some issues. We had to pull a calf, and it's just a
Those animals don't care if it's cold outside.
They don't care if it's Sunday night or Tuesday or none of that matters.
They still need what they need, right?
Yeah. And it's a great thing, I think. I mean, it's a great way to live. And one of the things that we really fell in love with was the process and the life skills that you can teach to kids and other people that come and help out at the ranch. And
sure,
when we were feeding those first 100 head of cattle over that winter, I'd take the kids and we'd show up before school and go check the water, put out a bunch of hay, make sure all the animals are doing fine, and then we do it again at night before we go to bed. So it gives you like a family activity and teaches the kids the importance of things other than yourself are more important, instead of just always thinking about yourself.
I've never really thought about it that way. Yeah. That's interesting, man.
So we fell in love with that process, and while we did that, I basically realized that if we put a house where we wanted to put the house, we're actually going to really mess up the flow of the ranch property. So we kind of pushed pause, and then as luck may have it, there's a house across the street with some extra acreage that came up for sale, and we're like, all right, well, that'll be our house. We'll tear that thing apart and rebuild it, and we did that. And it took a little while, but that's where we live now. So we've kind of slowly been trying to put the parcels back together over the years. It got subdivided and sold off to different families. So as neighboring properties have come available, we try.
So you're taking it in a complete different direction.
We're trying to kind of take it back in time.
Right? Yeah.
Trying to take it back in time somewhat. So fell in love with that process, put our house construction on hold, got the house across the street, bought the property next door to that out of foreclosure. And then people kind of started realizing what we're doing. And then instead of just putting their house in the market, they'd give us a call and we'd work out a deal. And then we had some different leases and things like that.
That's really awesome.
So we've kind of compiled a nice little ranch headquarters.
Especially in Colorado right now, there's such a huge influx right now, and a lot of those places are just
last year has been crazy.
Yeah, it's like 10,000 people a month or something.
Yeah,
the last time I checked, and that was.
So our ranch is in a little community called Emma, Colorado, which is right outside of Basalt.
Yep.
So Basalt is one of the kind of the.
You guys are in the Roaring Fork Valley, yeah?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome area.
Yeah, it's great. So Basalt is like one of the feeder towns going up to Aspen.
Yep.
And Basalt has blown up in this last
all
year.
Those little towns around there. I was shocked.
Even before COVID, we were getting a major influx of people moving there, but now, it is.
COVID's escalated it.
It's
big
crazy.
time.
Yeah. So,
and it's crazy how many out-of-state plates you see here just recreating, especially right here. We're a stone's throw from Denver, right? So This is kind of the first mountain stop. And we are a tourist-based community, really. A lot of this area is. So I don't really knock it, but man, it's crazy. There's more out-of-state plates out there right now, I guarantee you, in that parking lot than there are in-state.
Yeah, I bet there is.
It's pretty wild.
So it's been a great project. It's been we like taking on things that are not easy. We kind of feel like the harder the project is, the more rewarding it is when you kind of get leveled off and get operating. So it's been pretty great. It's been very difficult, challenging financially. It's expensive to do what we're doing, but we think it's well worth it, and we think that kind of reinstilling the values that you have that are just inherent with running a ranching operation and caring for animals. That we don't want that stuff to die in America. So we feel like we're doing our part, and like trying to revive some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like it's definitely getting pushed out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prior to this, we kind of skipped a spot, in between your childhood and, becoming an adult and buying this ranch. Did you travel at all? Did you come straight? What brought you to Colorado? Was it real estate or?
No, I spent a bunch of time in Colorado when I was in college.
Okay.
I studied psychology and Spanish at a small place in Minnesota, small private school there, and did do a fair amount of traveling, pursuing, learning Spanish. So I went to Costa Rica, went to Mexico a few times, went to spent a bunch of time in Peru, up in the mountains up there. And some of the guys I was hanging out with in college we really got into mountaineering and things like that. So when we would have a school break, we'd hop in somebody's truck and like race to Arizona or race to Colorado or, So one time we went from school, Minnesota, like practically sea level. We came out to Colorado and we climbed up Long's Peak, and it was like in the fall. It was a snowstorm. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of that, and then spent a lot of time in Colorado when I was in college. And then after college, I took a job out here and did a bunch of work, and really dug in and kind of figured out where I wanted to be.
So you've been here a while then.
Yeah. Well, I moved back after I was out here just for a little stint. But Colorado, I feel like, has been in my blood for a long time.
Sure.
Growing up, my dad listening to John Denver and like watching, Jeremiah Johnson and old Western movies and things like that. It was meant to be.
Sure.
I tried to fight it for a while, but I'm happy that we're here. So.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to be back. I grew up right here. Had to go out and see the world, wanted to rock and roll travel. I went to South America, went all over South America. In my time off, I would get out in the mountains and just do odd stuff, going to the jungles and shit like that. Normal stuff that guys would just hang out in their hotel rooms or at bars. I was out adventuring someplace.
Yeah. Got to test yourself as a young man.
Yeah. There was a few hairy moments too, though.
For sure.
For sure. But, it really took me having kids, and I lived in Hermosa Beach in my off time. I wasn't there very much. But that was great, man. Being a Colorado kid and growing up here in the mountains, they always held a place in my heart. But being able to hop on your beach cruiser and see girls in bikinis and pedal to the bar and all that stuff was awesome, right? And then I had kids, and I was like, wait a minute, where do I want them to grow up? And Hermosa Beach wasn't really the
doesn't
spot.
get any better than right here.
Yeah, and it really put it in perspective. Like, hey, this is how much I value this place now. Like, oh yeah, now I get it. So it was a hard move to come back, but yeah.
So we still have a bunch of family back in Minnesota. We've got a hunting property that we've had in the family for like 30 years. So we go back there all the time. So Minnesota is still very present in our life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have a crazy work ethic. Not crazy, but just a hard work ethic.
Pretty
right?
crazy.
Yeah. Was your dad, a big influence on that? Most parents are a lot of times.
For sure. I would definitely say my family, like everyone in my family is extremely hard workers, super smart, but more than relying on their intelligence or anything like that, they rely on getting things done. So
sure.
Yeah, my dad definitely, not just my dad, but definitely growing up with my dad, huge influence on me. Basically wanted to be like him when I got older, and we're still tight to this day. He started 3 businesses when I was a kid, so he owned his own companies and did all kinds of crazy deals, and so I learned a lot of my business sense from my father for sure. He started his first company, I think, in 1983.
Did he make you guys work as kids, like
you
and your siblings and stuff?
Yeah. We worked a ton.
Yeah.
Like I tell my dad this now. Like I got my first like payroll job when I was 14 years old, but we had worked all kinds of jobs before that: splitting wood, cutting lawns, raking leaves, doing chores around the house without getting paid for my dad.
It's just what you had to do, right?
Yeah, there was no option. Like my dad would, like it snowed all the time in Minnesota, right? So we're little kids, and I don't think my dad cared about having snow on the driveway. He just used it as an excuse for us to get our asses to work outside before he drove to the office in the morning. Like before I went to school, we had to have the driveway shoveled black. Like, get your asses out there, boys. That driveway's not going to shovel itself, and I'm not driving on snow.
Yeah.
So, we had all kinds of just different stuff. They kept us busy. And then, once we got to the age where you could go out and get a job, and I was probably too young to get a job, but somehow I sweet-talked this guy running a restaurant and ended up washing dishes, and I was making good money, and I was like, but the best part of that was I had my own freedom. Like I could ride my bike to work. I could work a double shift, and then if I was at home, then my dad would give me a chore list about 3 pages. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
He'd like have us sand the underside of the trailer and just find the most obscure shit to do to keep us busy all day.
Yeah. I think that's a key to keeping kids out of trouble, man, is because whenever I didn't have something to do,
he knew
there was always a rock in a window someplace. You know what I mean? That sort of mentality.
Because he was a wild ass growing up too. Yeah. So he knew what he had in store for him if he didn't keep us boys busy. So we stayed real busy, but I always had 2 jobs in the summer. I'd work a restaurant and then do something else at night. Got very little sleep, just constantly working. But I always got off.
That's why you dig ranching so much, is just because you constantly have something to do, or constantly feeding that or stimulating your brain, right? Like you have to be on point.
Yeah, when you have things to do, it's kind of a creative outlet. I like solving problems. Obviously, living in the ranching lifestyle, there's always problems. So I feel like I'm good at solving problems, and it's a fun challenge, and there's always you just can't ever finish anything, so it's just perpetual amounts
right,
of
and
work.
there's no putting it off till Tuesday. Like, we'll just do that on Tuesday, right?
Yeah. But now we've got a great team of people. We've got a great team on the ranching side and then on the meat company side. So. And
what would you say is the hardest part of being a cattle rancher or any sort of rancher at that point? Because you guys raise a lot more than just cows, right?
Well, we raise the cattle, and then we have two farmers that we source the pork from.
Okay.
And then we work exclusively with Bert Kuntz out of Wyoming, Bison Union.
Awesome. I didn't know that.
he and I are super tight. There's all
Solid
kinds of
guy, man.
There's all
Solid
kinds
guy.
of stuff coming up there. Stay tuned. But
Okay.
so we started selling Bert's bison,
And
on
he's
our
a former
website.
SEAL, right?
No, he's a Green Beret.
Green Beret.
Yeah,
Okay,
he was. Sorry, Bert, if I'm getting this wrong. I think he was 18 Delta. He's a medic. Super intelligent guy. Just salt of the earth. Great dude. Talked to him today.
Nice.
You know, he just dropped off a trailer full of bison, and they got slaughtered yesterday. So those will be going up on the website.
So you guys sell bison through Mountain Primal too?
Bert's bison. Yep.
Okay.
But we got Bert and I are talking about some cool stuff. So we'll see what happens in the very near future. He and I are very similar. He's very intense. I'm pretty intense, but he's got a heart of gold. He won't say something if he doesn't mean it, and I'm very much the same way. So Bert's awesome.
Awesome. Man.
Yeah.
It's good to have good connections like that.
Yeah. Oh, and then we sell elk too, Colorado elk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a family that raises elk, and we get that on the website. Perfect. So we kind of got into these other proteins just because we were selling so much of the beef. Things were getting sold out quickly, and wanted to get some other options up there of healthy protein for people to eat, and that it's, you know, people raising the animals the way they should be, people that we can trust. And so it's been awesome. You know, the elk is great. Obviously the bison is phenomenal. The last few times that basically every time that we do the bison with Bert, that stuff sells out in like real fast.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we
it's
got
a hot commodity,
we got
man.
the email reminders, and people can go on the website, and like, if you want the Bison New York strip, you can sign up on the email thing and get a notification. But we'll be putting more info out on that when we're ready to drop those cuts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say is the hardest part of ranching? Is it getting the actual product to consumers? Is it dealing with it on the customer service level? Or is it out feeding the cows and maintaining it?
The hardest thing, I would say, is trying to be in multiple places at the same time, which I try to do a lot. It's just can't happen. So then you have to assign that task that, like, I want to do the fun stuff, but a lot of times I can't because we have to concentrate on the things that only we can do. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to do something that somebody else can do just as well, you know? Mm-hmm. So we've taken the time over the last several years to train the team, and now they're like, they can do it all. But I still like to get out there and be a part of all that stuff. And that's the hardest part, I'd say, is not having enough time to do every facet of it myself, because it's enjoyable, you know, and I just don't like missing out on things that we do. But, you know, that's kind of the nature of running the business, is you can't be everywhere all the time. And
how big is your staff?
So we got 10 people right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But we run other businesses too. We've got a bookstore. We've got a horse riding
facility. Guys are much more, when I went on the website, you guys are much more than just meat. Like, you guys have some tools, some barbecue sauce, like shirts, hats,
got some merch.
We got some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. We launched our Mountain Primal fuel sticks last year.
Oh, cool.
So that's all our protein, you know, just little snack sticks that you can stick in your backpack when you go hunting or on a road trip or whatever. So those are awesome. Those have been a big hit.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check those out. I'm big on those.
That's kind of the fun stuff. I really get in the weeds with designing all the graphics and getting the labels right and getting them approved with the USDA. All this stuff has to be approved by the USDA. So
yeah,
you know, that getting the ingredient deck right and just lining out all that stuff and making it look right, you know. So coming from my background, I'm really into the details and the minutia of getting everything.
Well, it shows.
Tight.
I mean, your website's amazing, and I got to go on there and order some food. Actually,
yeah,
be awesome. You know, we were briefly talking about this. You guys are in calving season. You had mentioned something about some predators coming in. You know, bothering that process, which is a huge deal this time of year, right?
Yeah.
How often do you guys deal with that? Do you deal with bears and lions? I'm sure coyotes are big.
Yeah, I'd say the coyotes are our biggest issue. We do have black bears on our property, and up on the land where we graze in the summertime, but they're not too much of an issue. I think they could be, but they've got a lot of habitat and they kind of keep to themselves. But the coyotes they're little buggers, man.
Yeah.
So we had one coming after a calf yesterday morning, so that was a little spooky. And
is that a regular occurrence? I mean, is
no,
that something
we're having some issues with that calf's mom. So for whatever, sometimes you get moms have their calf and they neglect them a little bit, or they just don't bond the way they should, and it's typical. I mean, it's not the norm, but it does happen. So that calf got left on its own. It was way out in the backfield and close to the
easy target,
close
right?
to the area
Yeah.
where the coyotes hang out. So he tried to sneak out, but the good thing is, we've certainly killed a few predators on the ranch over the years, but you can deter them without having to do too much damage.
Yeah.
A lot of times if you shoot at coyotes, they'll kind of regroup, and you can kind of train them a little bit that way. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What is your take? I mean, we just saw it in the ballot box this year. It's super close. I mean, obviously, anybody that lives on the western slope or has a cattle ranch or something like that probably voted against having wolves here.
Yeah.
And everybody on the front range voted to have them, right?
Yeah.
That aren't really directly affected. What's your take on it?
Well, wolves are pretty interesting. Growing up in Minnesota, there's got a ton of wolves in the northern part of the state.
So you've dealt with them before, then?
Yeah. Yeah. And the farm property that we have up north, we have some local farmers that run cattle and raise crops and things like that on our property, and the wolves are a big issue with livestock up there.
And is it Canadian gray wolves that are in Minnesota as well?
Ours are timber wolves.
Okay.
Yeah, big timber wolves.
Yeah.
And they eat the deer, and it's hard to say. God is the one that knows what's right to do. So I think, we are a species on this earth is just the same as the wolves. So I think this natural displacement that's happened, from either shooting them off or they get scared off of their habitat just because they don't like cars and people and the smell of human beings and things like that. I think nature needs to take its course somewhat. I think the people pushing their agenda probably have, they have good intentions, but I think one of the keys to making big decisions is you really got to look far plus close at what the net effects are going to be down the road.
For sure.
And it could be pretty tricky.
Oh, it's going to be real tricky, I think. And I think it's going to put, some people's livelihood in jeopardy, maybe from the sense not so much the wolf taking their cows or killing their sheep or whatever it is, but maybe they end up shooting one and now it becomes a legal issue, right?
Oh, yeah, it would be for sure.
So that's a big deal.
And I know the guys up in northern Minnesota, they shoot them and you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
But it happens because
there's an old saying, and I won't say it on here, but yeah.
I think
we need to look at too. Yeah. We'll talk about it after the podcast. I think we covered 3 full episodes. I did 6 hours on wolf integration. I tried to have both sides of the fence in. I really tried to look at it neutrally, right? And not really take my own opinion, which I have, and I feel strongly about growing up here and being a native. The wolves that they're bringing in aren't native to this area specifically. They're a much larger predator, and they're a pack hunter. They're not used to human interaction, and I think one thing that enlightened me that I never thought about it was from the wolf's perspective is there's some ethics in that too. You got to think about they're being pulled from a place where they're not having any human interaction, and they're going to be dropped off where they're going to be running onto somebody's ranch looking for that easy meal. They're probably going to get shot at.
Yeah.
They got highways to cross. You got hikers that are cruising around. There's a lot of people in the state.
I just don't see how it's that sustainable,
Yeah.
really.
I don't either.
I understand the intent. Like,
sure,
let's make it the way it used to be, but the state is not the way it used to be. I mean, look at I-70. Look at Basalt, Colorado. Yeah. It's exploding with people. There's buildings going up everywhere, It's just,
and it makes sense for
a
place like Yellowstone or Wyoming maybe, because somebody else put it in perspective. The entire population of Wyoming in its whole is the population of the suburb of Lakewood here.
Yeah.
So that puts it in perspective too. But
It does.
we've beat the hell out of this, on the podcast. So I don't want to spend all your time talking about it, but I wanted to get your opinion, just kind of, you being a firsthand livestock owner and being very close to the Western Slope, Well,
we've had kids attacked in our valley by like young mountain lions and stuff.
Yeah.
So
we've had them right around here too.
Yeah.
There was one. I don't think it was last year, but it might have been the year before. But yeah, it happens. I mean, it's
tricky.
It's a concern for me when my kids are playing, in the yard and stuff.
You got to be super careful.
This last snowstorm, we actually had a lion go right across our deck.
No kidding.
Yeah, like I went out to go shovel and I just saw the coffee can footprints. And,
Yep.
We back up to some open space areas, and so there's habitat for them there for sure. I think, as hard as ranching is and all that stuff, you obviously value a little bit more what's on your plate and your customers' plates, right?
For sure.
And that's the whole reason that I hunt. I want to know where my meat's coming from. I hate to admit this in front of you, and I hope this doesn't start a war, but I do order meat from another company, which I'm going to be switching out of now, probably to order from yours.
Damn you.
But I didn't really know about you guys prior to this, So
there's other companies that do a good job.
I'm going to keep it in Colorado.
Yeah.
But I do order, if I am going to eat beef, I'm not just going to the grocery store and buying it off the shelf, right? Because I know what's involved with that. And I think that there's this misconception now because people don't see how that happens firsthand. And the cattle business is fucking crazy, man. There's brokers involved.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
with,
it's almost like the stock market, right? Like
there's a lot of moving parts with grocery store meat for sure.
Yeah,
yeah. So I think just keeping the pulse kind of calm with the way we raise our meat, and there's really not much to it. I mean, there's a lot to it, obviously, but you get the meat. It goes to your house. Like,
you exactly where it's coming from.
It's very simple.
You guys can go online and see what you're doing with them. And you guys sell a different type of cattle or beef, right?
Correct.
It's not your typical stuff that you're going to find at the grocery store. This is a Highland Cattle, and for people that don't know, they have some people refer to them as Scottish Highlands and American Highlands.
I'll fill you in on that.
Okay, cool.
So the American Highland breed is the oldest registered breed of cattle in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, and they all came from the Scottish Highlander, but now that they're here, they're actually the breed name is American Highland Cattle. So all of our cattle are registered. We know, their progeny going back decades. Yeah. So we've got records on all the cattle, the mamas, the bulls. We don't do that with the steers because obviously the steers are the ones that we turn into beef. So the ones that we're going to hang on to use to augment the herd or build the herd, we know all their DNA. We've got all their paperwork going back a long ways, and it's all registered through the American Highland Cattle Association. So there's a big database, and we pull hair out of their tail and send the hair sample to University of California for DNA testing, so we know who the father is, and stuff like that.
Damn, there's kids right down the street that don't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with the record keeping with running a herd of our size. You want to make sure that you're not inbreeding. If you're buying some new cattle and bringing them into the herd for breeding, you want to make sure that the bulls aren't related, and it's just a lot of. Just got to check the boxes, It's a project, and we just kind of lay out all the pieces of what we got to do, and just kind of go down the list and cross things off.
And this isn't your typical cow that you would see with like short hair, big belly, wagging tail, right? These things look like it's not Shaggy the dog, but
a lot of people mistake them for yaks.
Yeah, there you go.
They're yaks.
Super long
they're like,
hair,
what is
right?
this thing? And they've got the long coat. Obviously,
there's a photo.
The breed hails from Scotland, where it's super cold and windy, so they do great here in our environment.
Especially in your guys' valley, I'm sure, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty chilly up there.
Yeah, it gets very cold. And then in the summertime, when they're grazing up on the mountainside, their horns are great. They can whack through the brush, and their coats are. It's basically like a raincoat, and you're down puffy underneath it. Is kind of how we identify the way their coat is set up. Like that outer long hair kind of wicks that moisture off of them, and then there's another layer of hair underneath that's basically like their insulating.
Now, do you have to manage their hair at all, or is that something
we do?
Really?
Yeah. So it's a lot of the reason why commodity beef is not Highland cattle is because it's based on weight and yields and things like that. So obviously their coat weighs a lot more than the coat of a Angus steer. And then the head weighs a lot more because of the horns. So the moms, the bulls.
And the moms have horns too, right?
That's a mama right there.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Shit, I thought that was a bull, man.
That's a female. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
I'm sure that helps with predator protection a little bit too,
right?
right?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
And they can, jam it up your ass if you're not watching. So we got to be real. I mean, what we do is dangerous.
Yeah, no,
it's very
no doubt
dangerous
about it.
Handling the animals and getting to a point where you're smart enough to kind of understand what they're thinking and getting too close. And I mean, it's not as dangerous as dealing with bison because bison are literally wild animals. Somehow we get the awesome opportunity to eat that protein. I don't know, like that's just a whole different story. Those animals they'll crush.
That's
they'll crush
actually
you.
The ranch that I worked on as a kid. I would go in the mornings before school and feed, and then after I get out of school, go and work or do whatever we needed to be done. But it was a bison ranch.
Yeah, they're great. And I talk to Bert about the bison stuff all the time, and it's like, they touch the animals once a year. Like the bulls are out there all year. There's actually like a rut. There's not like, all right, we're letting the bulls out with the mamas like we do, with the cattle. So it's interesting. It's very intriguing.
My buddy Mark Montoya that runs Factory X down the hill, he's got a bunch of UFC fighters. He's always in somebody's corner.
Yeah.
Awesome guy, native to Colorado, Native American. His whole mentality with his guys is they are the buffaloes, right? So whether it's a Cape buffalo or American buffalo, because they're the only animal when a storm comes, they go directly into it, right?
Yep.
They don't veer away from it, which I thought it was kind of cool, but they're a badass creature, man.
They're the coolest.
Yeah.
It's the most mountain primal meat that you can find.
Oh, 100%.
So
yeah.
We're pretty honored to be working with Bert. So
that's great.
Yeah. What else were we talking about? Oh, the yields and the coat and so the Highland beef is it's awesome. In my opinion, I mean, I'm totally fucking biased because we own this company, obviously, and I even say this all the time. I'm like, do I have my head so far in this thing that I can't tell that steak tastes better than mine, or is our stuff just that good? And I think our stuff is. I'll do the fucking Pepsi challenge any day of the week. I can pick our meat out of any stack of steaks out there.
Really?
Yeah. It's just tender.
I'd like to try it.
It's just more tender. It's got a cool flavor profile. It's Highland beef is well known in Europe to be like top of the line. So.
And do you guys supply any restaurants, or is it strictly private consumers?
Well, when we first started the meat company, we bought our first ranch property in 2012. Took a couple years doing the infrastructure work and all that, and then got our first 23 head in, I think it was August of 2014. So we started selling meat in 2015, and my goal was to just sell it to the fancy restaurants in Aspen. So we did that for many years, and it had its own challenges. It worked great. Like we sold to, I don't know, dozens of different restaurants. And it worked awesome. But part of the issue with that is you'd have a good relationship with a chef, and then the chef would take a job in some other town, leave you high and dry, or you had a good relationship with the owner, and then the business would close down, or things would change. So it was constantly like dropping accounts and gaining accounts. And I was like, you know what? We're going to do this on our terms. So we kind of stopped all meat sales for about a year. To the restaurants, and we just started building the website and kind of redefined how we were going to get the protein out the door. Because basically, the meat is a byproduct of the life that we want to live. We want to live the ranching life. We want to have livestock, and we don't want to sell them at a sale barn. Yeah. We want the Highland cattle.
Well, I think it's great to have an option like this. Me being so picky about where my meat comes from is very important to me, and like I said, that's why I hunt. It's a big reason why I hunt.
I think
really, it might be the only reason why I hunt.
Well, the hunting thing is massively important, but not every time you hunt, you kill, right?
Yeah.
So
Are you guys, I thought I saw something on there that it mentioned that some of the beef is dry aged. That's something that you're not going to find at a grocery store.
It's all dry aged.
Really?
All of it. All of it is dry aged. Yep.
You just got a new customer, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So the beef, it's hard to pinpoint exactly how many days, but because it's also based on the production schedule at the slaughter plant, processing facility, things like that, our schedule, like how badly we need the meat, but at a bare minimum, it's 14 days dry aged.
Okay.
So sometimes it's more than that, but it really doesn't need to be more than 14 days. Yeah.
Are you guys USDA organic or anything like that? I mean,
no, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I don't want the federal government fucking around in my life any more than it needs to.
It takes a lot, right? Like,
well, we did all kinds of certifications and things like that. When we first started, we got GAP certified. We were American Grass Fed Association certified. And the way we're raising our animals, I mean, you can go on our social feeds and see exactly what we're doing. So we're like, open kimono. We'll just show you whatever we're doing. And that, sure. And a lot of times when we were telling customers about our certifications, people didn't even know about that stuff back in 2015, 2016. So we were educating people to that, and it didn't really seem that they cared too much about our paperwork. They wanted to come out to the ranch and take a look, and they wanted to hear it out of my mouth, like that we're doing it the right way. So that's the most convincing thing I think that we can do. And since it's not grocery store beef,
and
like we don't need to have the little icon on there, because we're interacting with every customer when they come to the website. They can go peruse the website.
That's what I was going to say. Even on your Instagram,
they can call customer service. I mean, I respond to some emails that our customer service people are like, "Hey, I think this is one for Boss Man." Sure. Sometimes I'll pick up the phone and call somebody if I can tell that they're kind of hyper about what's going on, and I'll sit and talk to them on the phone for a few minutes and just.
That's super unusual too.
Just tell them what we do. Here's what we do. Here's why we picked Highland Cattle. Here's how we do our rotational grazing. Here's how we do the calving.
And are you guys 100% grass fed, or is that how does that work?
Okay, so no. The answer no. Basically, they eat grass until the day they die, but for about 90 days we do put some type of finish on them. So,
that's the best, right? Because that's how you get some good marbling, but you're getting all the benefits of grass fed.
Yeah.
And me being a little bit of a meat connoisseur, I've found myself, and maybe it's because I grew up eating game meat all the time, I kind of like that richer grass fed beef.
So it's super like if we're in Georgia, I'd be like, yeah, we could do grass-fed, because they can actually eat live grass on the ground all year in Georgia or California. But here we got 6 months out of the year where they need extra, and it's pretty hard to get them through the winter, and it's actually not good for them to not. You got to feed them a little bit of extra. They need some sugars and different legumes and just different sources of protein in the wintertime. Sure. But we've got a company that we contracted with.
So you guys kind of have the best of both worlds, right? In my opinion, that what I found from my flavor palette and just doing my homework on it is grass-fed up to a certain point and grain finished.
Yeah, but I mean, everything that we do, we basically have a nutrition plan that we came up with this company that we contract with out of I think they're in Texas, but they've got the young woman that we deal with is in Denver. But she comes out to the ranch. We meet with her all the time, and we basically have a custom nutritional plan for these animals to make sure when they're going through the winter, they're getting all the stuff they need, because that can also affect how the calves come out. So if you're starving the animal in the winter because you want to be grass-fed, you're going to have more aborted pregnancies. You're going to have small birthing calf weights. You're going to have difficult calving issues. They're going to come out premature.
A lot that goes into it, yeah.
So we've got a pretty sweet system. So now the calves are all coming full term. They're getting, they're right in that good calf weight for our animals and stuff like that. So we got a good program.
You got it figured out for sure.
Yeah.
After hearing your story, I'm just I'm super impressed, because you could have made a ton of money in real estate, and I feel like maybe you dial that back so you could do a little bit more of what's important to you and raising your kids and stuff like that. Where does that kind of drive or mentality come from to just shift gears like that?
It's just I don't know. I guess I'm kind of I'm just very.
Is it a passion, you think?
I'm just very dedicated to principles, you know. So I've got a set of life principles that I try to live my life by, and we've also created a set of work principles that we all adhere to at the ranch. Like everybody has their sheet of work principles. We talk about it at the weekly meetings. It's ingrained in the people that we have in our organization, and obviously that's expected of me because I'm leading the charge with everything. But it's just based on principles, man. Like, here's how I want to live my life. Do I want to be doing this with my time, or do I want to be doing this with my time where I can share these experiences with my kids and like make sure that we're giving back to society in a way that I think can positively affect what's going on in our country. You know, I think if more people did that and stop, I mean, we have to look at the bottom line. Everybody does. You know, you got to make sure that things are financially sound. But what can we be doing to like create a healthier society? So one of our commercial real estate properties that we purchased a few years back, we wanted to park some investment dollars because we knew what was going to happen to Basalt, like it has. We were like, all right, this building is going to go up in value over the next 20 years for sure. So this is a great investment. We were thinking about renting it out. We were thinking about, you know, all kinds of different options of what to do with this piece of commercial real estate. And then we had the idea, let's build a bookstore. Like we want to promote people reading books, like hardcover books in their house, reading with their kids, putting the phones down, like, you know, strengthening your intelligence. That's one of our work principles, is always strengthen your intelligence. Like if you're feeling like you're not prepared for whatever it is that you're taking on, like take a step back, go read about it or study up or do whatever you need to do to strengthen your intelligence and come back.
Don't just go watch YouTube.
come back equipped with, you know,
Sure.
And one of our other principles is recognize when you require help. So if you think that you're in over your head, wave the white flag and say, hey, you know, it's your responsibility to speak up if you feel like you need help. So there's a bunch of other principles that we
So you would say that that's the motivating force, or kind of what gives you purpose to
the principles? Yeah, I mean the principles for sure. I mean here's how I want to live my life. I think it comes down to, you know, having a dedicated plan in your life. The first thing you need to do is like you got to understand who you are more than anything. Like, do you really know who you are?
Right.
And figure it out. Like if you don't totally know who you are, how can you make decisions that are the best for yourself and thus the best for your family? Like you really got to know who you are. Man.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't agree with you more. And
take some time and identify your strengths and weaknesses, and like, what are you good at? What do you suck at? What triggers you? What makes you pissed off? What makes you happy and positive? Like, and which lane do you want to live in?
And what do you think the best way is to figure that out? Because for me personally, it's to take like 5 steps back or go to 30,000 feet and look at everything, right?
Yeah.
And or spend some time by myself.
Well, like Clay told you, your other podcast with General Hutmacher.
Awesome guy too, by the way.
His philosophy is leadership is not something that you're born with. Like it's a learned characteristic. So that's part of what I feel like I'm trying to do is talk to these young kids that work for us, get on the podcast, spread the word. I don't know. How do I know it? I don't know. I mean, I was raised that way. I have no idea. But I think you gotta, being a man, being a human being, it's your job to like coach people up on stuff. And I'm not saying like I'm bossy and I tell people what to do. Like let people make their own decisions. Like this is America. We live in the world in the most freest freaking state of anything in the entire world, or maybe we used to.
Right.
But
yeah, it's questionable.
I'm
right
still
now,
fighting
right?
for that.
Yeah.
I'll fight till the day I die for those American freedoms,
100%.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I'm not into telling people what to do, but if you're going to become part of my life, like I'm going to share my passions with you. I'm going to share my intellect, my, you know, what drives me, and I try to dig pretty deep in some of that stuff. So you get a lot of people that are kind of skimming across the water. Like the idea is to get in the deep water.
And that's one of my favorite things about podcasts, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that, because that's one reason why I got into podcasting. Although I worked in an entertainment industry, right, where everybody wanted to be in the limelight, I was the exact opposite. I wanted to be that guy in the shadows and have all the benefits that the people do in the limelight, right? And then podcasting came along, and that kind of changed my whole. It gave me an opportunity to have a voice and voice my opinion, and hopefully maybe share it with other people. And I'm not saying everything that we say on here is correct or is going to be right for everybody, but it's just another perspective, right?
We're just digging up some dirt, man.
Yeah.
We're digging up some dirt, throwing things around.
And we're sitting down having a conversation like we talked about at the beginning, right?
You can get into some philosophy, and that's the beauty of relationships with other human beings is you can take something from me, I can take something from you. There's a symbiotic relationship there, and I guess ultimately the goal is like, how do we become better humans? How do we take care of ourselves? Like, what can I do to help you out in your life? What can you do to help me out? Like, it's not me coming here to take from you or me sitting here so you can take from me. Like, it's a symbiotic relationship.
And I appreciate you sharing your values too so openly, because I think that that's the key to opening some people's eyes sometimes is I've definitely had my eyes opened on numerous podcasts, listening to, Medal of Honor stories or whatever it is. Maybe it's just Joe Rogan talking about aliens or some shit, right?
Yeah.
Could be anything.
Those are always good.
Yeah. Good stuff.
No, but I think when you get to sit with somebody and just jam on stuff, I mean, it
doesn't get much better than that.
That's the beautiful part of life, man, where you can like really dig in and have a deep conversation with somebody. And
I think that's been my favorite part of this podcasting is meeting people like every person that I have come sit in the seat. It isn't just like I'm asking random people to come in. I'm kind of picking and choosing like, who do I want to talk to? And when I heard your backstory, I was just intrigued by it. So
yeah, it's
super stoked.
It's pretty interesting for sure. Not normal.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're sharing it too. 'Cause a lot of people, I guess with that rancher mindset or whatever, knowing a lot of those guys and having some family members, a lot of those guys keep to themselves, man.
Yeah.
It's not really a shared.
Well, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that for sure. But I think it's part of my job in my life to try to push some of these values back into society, Sure. Like we gotta keep, revving the engine with our country and doing the right thing for people and like setting the right example. And look, I'm a piece of shit sometimes, like I'm not perfect, man. I'm not pretending to be like, and it's a little bit hard too when you run the organization. Like a lot of times people don't call you out and it ends up, being my wife at home or my kids or, but we're all accountable, we all got to be accountable and try to figure out how to do the right thing. But if I've got something that I can offer somebody else and I feel like they're receptive to it, like we'll sit and talk,
Yeah.
Maybe something will rub off. Maybe something will rub off from him or her onto me,
Yeah, it's an interesting outlook, and I wish more people would do it. And like I said, that's why I love this podcast world. Being a rancher and a steward of the land yourself, being a hunter, outdoorsman, what are some things that you see that the general public, or not specifically in Colorado, it could be any Rocky Mountain region, Montana, Wyoming, it could be the Appalachian Mountains, it could be the Alps. What are some things that you see firsthand that you think people could be doing better to help preserve it? Because that's one of my big concerns is I want my kids to grow up with the same experience that I did, which they're already not. I want them to be able to fish the same streams. And more importantly, not my kids, their grandkids. Their grandkids, like I'm thinking like way in the future. What are some common things that you run into that you think we could be doing better?
Well, I think just having reverence for nature, like it's a special thing, and it's the bloodline to our existence. So I think people need to pause, stop, speeding through life. And when you get in that natural environment, just have some reverence and take time, and slow things down.
Yeah.
And, don't be hasty and understand that we all have an ingrained ability to contribute to, preserving our awesome environment that we have. Like you drive through Colorado, it's like breathtaking,
Yeah. Unless you're going to DIA.
I try to stay away from there.
Yeah. I always joke that it's in Nebraska. No, I'm not hating on that either.
Man, I haven't been on a plane in a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been.
Unfortunately, I got to get on one on tomorrow.
I haven't been on a plane in a good long while. I've been driving everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just too fucking depressing to go into these public places and seeing the face muzzles and like everybody towing the mark. Like, fucking drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
You want to get into politics? Here we go. Like, I think what we're doing as a society is wrong. Like,
yeah,
I think it's so counter to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like,
I think it should be up to the individual.
So that's my take on it. Like, everybody needs to stop living in fear. If you have pre-existing conditions or whatever, try to fix them. Do whatever you can do. I understand some people are not healthy. It's unfortunate, but get some sleep, eat good food,
take vitamins.
Don't treat your body like shit.
Yep.
So it's not that easy, but it really pains me to be witness to that stuff. I can't do it.
Yeah, it is definitely.
So I've been driving everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, nobody can tell me how long I can or can't drive. I can stop wherever the fuck I want. Like, it's freedom.
Yeah. Have you done any big road trips lately? Like, have you gone out of the state?
2020, we did quite a few. We're trucking all the time with the meat company. We're trucking cattle to and from different locations, and so there's always, if you want to drive, you can drive.
Sure.
You need some side work, come on and get in the truck and help us out.
I hate driving, man.
No,
I hate driving for a living. I envy guys that do that because
I actually enjoy the truck driving aspect of what we do, hauling a load of cattle where you got to be like super tuned in.
Yeah.
It's tricky. It's not easy, but I enjoy that part of it. But yeah, we drove to Idaho. We've driven back to Minnesota quite a few times. We drove down to a deer hunt down south. So yeah, done a bunch of driving this last year.
How often do you get out and hunt these days? I mean, I do it to stock my freezer, and yours is probably pretty stocked.
Our
right?
freezer's stocked, but I was fortunate enough to shoot 2 whitetail deer this year, or this last hunting season, but I hunt every year. We've got like set things that we do as a family.
Sure.
So we try to take a trip to Wyoming and do a pronghorn hunt in October basically, and then we've got different bird hunting stuff that we do up in northern Minnesota, whether it be ducks or geese or grouse out in the woods. So and then when we're doing the grouse hunting out in the woods, we're checking the deer stands for November, and then November we're there for bow hunting season and then rifle hunting season. We spend a lot of time in the fall.
Do you do that with family? Because that's a big part of it for me, is just getting out, decompressing, disconnecting from all of this. It's about the only time where I really stop working. Is just like, okay, I'm going to focus on hunting and just hanging out.
It's all family typically. Yeah. I mean, this year I was able to do a pretty cool hunting trip with Baker and some of the guys. We did the inaugural hunt for the hunter recruitment project. Check that out online. That's a neat thing that's happening.
What are those guys doing there specifically?
So the hunter recruitment project is basically kind of like how I'm trying to push my values back into society with the ranching and the hard work and the dedication and dealing with animals. Like, your life's not as important. Like, take a deep breath. Like, deal with something that is bigger than you. So with the hunter recruitment project, they're trying to get new hunters out in the woods and instill some values about what does hunting mean. Instead of people doing it online, they can actually come and do the hunt for the first time and take down a white-tailed deer, and then
probably gain some mentors too, right?
The mentors are a big part of it. So all the new hunters are assigned a mentor who's been hunting their whole life. They can teach them about, obviously there's a whole element of firearm safety involved.
Which is key, man.
There's all kinds of hunting tactics involved, and then we're getting into like field dressing and meat management and like what do you do after the kill and things like that. And then the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, all the cool stuff that happens at hunting camp. And now you've got this awesome experience, these great memories that you can pull from for the rest of the year. So it's been highly successful. So Mountain Primal we provided all the meat, for like breakfast and stuff. And then
was Jocko up there?
No,
okay.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
but we had some other key folks that people know who they are for sure. But go on Hunter Recruitment.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into
Hunter
that.
Recruitment Project's got an Instagram, and they got some good photos on there. So there's all kinds of cool stuff coming up with that. So we're involved. We help sponsor that program.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, John, I really love what you guys are doing in Colorado. I love that you're here in Colorado. I'm going to start buying my meat from you now.
Good.
For sure. And thank you for your time. And more importantly, thank you for your family's time too, man.
Yeah.
I know this is a bit of a trip for you to come down and hang out with us, but I've really enjoyed this, man. And
thank you.
I'd love to have you back in the future too.
I'll come back.
Yeah, man. You're right down the road. So
next time I'll bring some meat for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, we could have a barbecue or something.
No problem.
Yeah, we'll roll the Traeger in here.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, man.
Thanks,
Thank you
bro.
very much.
Yep.
Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Anna, you doing okay back there?
We're all good back here, Bobby.
All right. Hey, I truly appreciate your time here at the Mountainside Podcast, and I appreciate you listening to us. One thing that will help us to ensure to keep bringing you awesome content with great guests is to please follow, rate, comment, like, or subscribe the podcast on whatever platform you're catching it on. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. The Mountainside Podcast is now available on Patreon. So if you'd like ad-free listening, behind-the-scenes footage, or maybe you just want to help support what we do here at the Mountainside Podcast, please take a moment and visit patreon.com/themountainside.